Produced and distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C., this is your NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, artists, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about the show at our website, stash.norml.org, and continue the education and conversation on our blog as well. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. The podcasting and blogging technology for the NORML Daily Audio Stash is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. Visit www.redaphid.com. It's Tuesday, March 11th, and it's 4:20 somewhere in the world. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville. Get involved in the cannabis civil rights movement and join us here at NORML. You can learn everything you need to know at NORML.org. Make a donation, write a letter, attend a rally, march for your rights. It all starts with you. Remember, the government estimates there are millions of Americans that have smoked marijuana in the past month. If Congress had to hear 1 million phone calls asking for an end to adult marijuana prohibition, it would be a reality. Call your Congress at 202-225-3121. They'll ask your zip code and put you in touch with your elected officials. It still is a government of we the people, but you have to step up and do your part. Tuesday is Government at Work Day on the podcast, and coming up after the news, we're going to look at medical marijuana in the Great Midwest with Dan Lin from Illinois NORML. He's got updates on the medical cannabis bills that are being debated this week in their legislature. Then we head east to Rhode Island with Jesse Stout of the Rhode Island Patient Advocacy Coalition to discuss the proposal for a nonprofit, state-regulated medical cannabis distribution system. After that, we go back to the Midwest for our musical break with Sly Joe from Neenah, Wisconsin, and his song, High. Just the kind of break Wisconsinites need to soothe the sorrow since Brett Favre announced his retirement from the Green Bay Packers. Or maybe that's just me. And to end the show, I debut a new segment for the stash, Patient Perspectives, where we sit down with ordinary Americans who have found incredible relief from the medical use of cannabis. Today we speak with Susan, who is a registered patient in the state of Oregon using cannabis to help save her sight from the ravages of glaucoma, something the people of Michigan and Illinois should be considering as they debate enacting medical marijuana laws in those two Midwestern states. So sit back and relax with your favorite strain. This is your NORML Daily Audio Stash. Now it's time to take a look at the latest stories about marijuana from news organizations across America and around the world in our NORML Daily Audio Stash, Hemp Headlines. 74-year-old nuke testing veteran fights for medical marijuana in Michigan. Kalamazoo. The atomic explosions off the remote islands in the South Pacific seem to turn night into day. They also turned Martin Chilcutt into a marijuana user. Chilcutt says the drug helped him to ease the pain he says dates back to his exposure to radiation during a 1956 U.S. government project testing nuclear and thermonuclear weapons. A state ballot proposal could allow voters in November to decide whether Chilcutt's measures to self-medicate should be legal in Michigan. The 74-year-old former intelligence officer with the U.S. Naval Air Force has used other medications to help him with his physical and psychological problems, but marijuana helps so much better, he says. Quote, "Sometimes I just want to die. You can only take intense pain for so long before you'll do anything to escape it." End quote. While part of the testing project, Chilcott remembers he donned large goggles and turned his back to protect his eyes as the bombs exploded in the early morning darkness. There was no protection, though, from the heavy doses of radiation that spewed from the explosions and reached Chilcott. He has battled skin cancer 3 times, including basal cell carcinoma, the most common form of cancer, with about 1 million new cases reported in the United States each year. He has been in remission for the past 10 years. Well, it's good to see Mr. Chilcott standing up for medical marijuana. You know, it's harder and harder for people to oppose this, especially when you have a respected member of the community, an Army or a Navy veteran, someone who went through the nuclear testing. It's hard to argue with that when you see them getting such relief from using medical marijuana. Should the state of Michigan pass their voter initiative this November, they will become the 13th medical marijuana state and the first such state in the Midwest. National Public Radio focuses on school that offers classes on cooking with pot. More than a decade ago, California's voters were the first in the nation to approve so-called medical marijuana. Since then, hundreds of prescription pot storefronts have sprung up across the state. And that's now given rise to a new, one-of-a-kind school in Oakland, California, Oaksterdam University, which trains students on how to work in the medical marijuana industry. Oaksterdam is the brainchild of Richard Lee. He's a medical marijuana activist and a pot dispensary owner. The curriculum includes everything from lectures on the political and legal history of medical marijuana to the basic botany of cannabis, such as why a grower wants to identify and separate male from female plants. The class is just one part of Lee's vision to not only promote the medical marijuana industry, but also to revitalize this beleaguered downtown Oakland, which he's dubbed Oaksterdam. This is great to see this coming across on National Public Radio, being exposed to an audience that most likely wouldn't have found it out otherwise. And so much of fighting this drug war boils down to economics. As medical marijuana becomes more mainstream, more businesses will benefit from the taxation and regulation of cannabis. Here in Oregon and California, we have ballot measures coming up in 2008 and 2010 that would ask our citizens to tax and regulate marijuana similar to hard alcohol. Now, when's the last time you ever heard of a segment of the population that's requesting to be taxed? Former CIA director weaves the case for legalizing hemp. From the Rocky Mountain News in Denver, Colorado. Former CIA Director Jim Woolsey, who has served under former President Clinton and has been an advisor to President Bush, will hold court via telephone on another of his favorite topics, industrial hemp. Commercial farming of hemp is banned in the United States for its apparent similarities to marijuana, a charge repudiated by hemp supporters. Developed regions such as Europe and Canada allow farmers to grow hemp for industrial purposes such as ropes or fabrics. The Canadian consulate in Denver supports the move to lift the ban. Woolsey says hemp, if allowed in the U.S., could become a low-water consuming and easy-to-grow feedstock for biofuels. Also, because of its biological properties, hemp could inhibit the growth of illegal marijuana through cross-pollination. Well, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Banning hemp because it looks like marijuana is like banning powdered sugar because it looks like cocaine. Never mind that both marijuana and hemp are varieties of the cannabis plant. From the perspective of drug use, one is a mild euphoriant and the other one is used to make rope. It's well past time that the United States end the ban on industrial hemp farming and grow us out of this oil dependency nightmare we find ourselves in.
Marijuana is an addictive drug which produces in its users insanity, criminality, and death.
Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind.
If the hideous monster Frankenstein came face to face with the monster of marijuana, he would drop dead from fright.
Reefer Madness.
Is salvia the next marijuana? From the Associated Press. Salvia divinorum, a botanical cousin of the mint plant, is being targeted by lawmakers concerned that the inexpensive and easy-to-obtain plant could become the next marijuana. 8 states have already placed restrictions on salvia, and 16 others, including Florida, are considering a ban or have previously. Quote, As soon as we make one drug illegal, kids start looking around for other drugs they can buy legally. This is just the next one, said Florida State Representative Mary Brandenburg, who's introduced the bill to make possession of salvia a felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Some say legislators are overreacting to a minor problem, but no one disputes that the plant impairs judgment and the ability to drive. Native to Mexico and still grown there, Salvia divinorum is generally smoked, but can also be chewed or made into a tea. Called nicknames like Sally D, Magic Mint, and Diviner's Sage, salvia is a hallucinogen that gives users an out-of-body sense of traveling through time and space or merging with inanimate objects. Unlike hallucinogens like LSD or PCP, however, salvia's effects last for a shorter time, generally up to an hour. I don't think salvia is going to become, quote, the next marijuana, end quote. Part of what makes marijuana popular is that it is pleasant and mild compared to other drugs. Also, fewer people like the disconnect from reality that one gets from stronger psychedelics. Finally, getting high on salvia takes some sacrifice. The stuff tastes awful, and its effects aren't very reliable from episode to episode. So I've heard.
Hi, I'm Rick Steves, and you're enjoying NORML's Daily Audio Stash. Please take a moment right now to support this organization by donating online.
Tuesday is our look at your government at work here at the Audio Stash. While the inevitable re-legalization of cannabis hemp will have to happen at the federal level, the steps leading to that destination take place at the state and municipal levels. We focus in on the initiatives, bills, and amendments regarding cannabis across all 50 states, and what activists like you are doing to enact a positive reform to our cruel and outdated marijuana laws.
Body dies, the eagle flies, the birds they sing, the creatures learn. It's an honest day's work, yeah, 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 yeah. It's an honest day's work.
If you're working hard to make an impact in your city and state, please email us at stash@normal.org. And let's share your local efforts with the worldwide cannabis community. Together, we can affect our government at work.
Afternoon pollution rises high into the sky. How can we still deny the truth?
Okay, well, as everyone knows, Tuesday is our Government at Work Day here at the NORML Daily Audio Stash, and we go to the people who are working nationwide in all of the 50 states to help end adult marijuana prohibition. Right now we turn to Rhode Island, and we're speaking with Jesse Stout, who's the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Patients Advocacy Coalition, which you can check on the internet at ripatients.org. Jesse, welcome to the Stash.
Thank you, Russell.
Hey, now we just blogged yesterday, I checked the news here, that there was an alert about some compassion center bills in Rhode Island. Now, Rhode Island is one of the medical marijuana states. Apparently this must be a bill to amend your current law.
That's right. We passed our law January 3rd, 2006, making Rhode Island the 11th of the 12 medical marijuana states, and now we're working on regulating distribution at the state level.
So a compassion center, this would be some sort of dispensary operation. How might that differ or be alike to the California dispensary system?
Well, it's alike in its goal of providing access for medical marijuana patients, and differs in that we would have a state-regulated compassion center. California has compassion centers called dispensaries that are regulated at the city and county and town level, and this would be regulated by the Rhode Island Department of Health.
I see. So could anyone run one of these compassion centers? What are some of the limits or regulations that will govern those centers?
Well, if our bill passes this year, then any Rhode Island nonprofit corporation whose board of directors all reside in Rhode Island can apply to the Department of Health for a license to become the Compassion Center, which would then allow them to grow and distribute marijuana for patients. The Compassion Center would qualify as a primary caregiver for patients. Since our patients are allowed to appoint up to 2 caregivers, they could appoint this one and then go down to buy marijuana or marijuana plants or marijuana seeds from the Compassion Center directly.
Now, I see that this bill has been, it said there was twin bills that were entered into your General Assembly. So we've got one in your House and one in your Senate. What does it look like as far as support in those two bodies?
Well, I would say things look very good for us right now. In the Senate, our sponsor, Senator Rhoda Perry, has introduced S2693, which has been referred to the Senate Health and Human Services Committee, which she chairs. So that looks very good. And in the House, Representative Tom Slater has introduced H7888, which is going to the House Health, Education, and Welfare Committee. Representative Slater is very well respected here in Rhode Island for his many terms in public service, and also considered a compassionate expert on this issue for his long-standing struggle with cancer.
Okay, so that's good that we've got some supporters of those bills in the legislators. How about the public support? Do you anticipate any problems with the public? I mean, your bill to pass medical marijuana back in 06 seemed to have pretty good public support. Do you think the public will get behind the dispensary idea?
Well, you're right that we've enjoyed very widespread public support to this point. When we first polled on medical marijuana before the law passed, we found that 69% of Rhode Islanders were in support among the public. Once we passed our bill, did another after poll and found that 79% of Rhode Islanders supported the program as it was being implemented. So that was very good. And then since then, we have seen a little bit of opposition, but it's all come from the governor and the Rhode Island State Police. The Governor of Rhode Island, Donald Kachiri, and the State Police spokesperson are the only people really on record as opposing medical marijuana in Rhode Island at this point.
I see. Now, the other thing I was wondering about is whether or not does Rhode Island recognize any other of the medical marijuana states?
Oh, that's a great question. We're real proud on that one. Rhode Island is one of two states, Rhode Island and Montana, with the reciprocity clause at the bottom of the law that says that any states recognize medical marijuana patients are legal here as well. In other words, a California patient can bring their documentation to Rhode Island and also grow, use, and possess marijuana legally.
And of course, as long as they remain under the Rhode Island limits.
That's right. That would be 12 plants or 2.5 ounces.
Now, I noticed one last thing on this bill. It said something about the bill would allow Rhode Island to accept recommendations from Connecticut and Massachusetts, which aren't medical marijuana states. So what's the story behind that?
Well, that's right, Russ. We have a problem just like the one you were describing, where state borders are kind of arbitrary and in our way. We have some patients on Rhode Island's northern border whose natural family doctor in their neighborhood might very well be in Massachusetts, or patients on Rhode Island's western border who might go to see a specialist in Connecticut just because he's the closest one who does that job. So we would definitely prefer for these patients to be able to get medical marijuana recommendations from their regular doctor with whom they have an established relationship than having to seek a new doctor within Rhode Island.
Oh, okay, so that makes sense, especially when you consider Rhode Island's geography. Now, one other thing I wanted to talk to you about here has to do with how the people in Rhode Island with the Rhode Island Patient Advocacy Coalition are helping patients currently since you lack a compassion center at this time. But until you can get the compassion centers going, I understand you guys put together a meeting for patients to try to help them out.
Yeah, that's right, Russ. Since currently medical marijuana patients in Rhode Island are expected to grow their own medicine or get it from a caregiver, and not everyone is able to do either of those things, there are still some people among our most vulnerable citizens left to buy marijuana from a drug dealer on the street. And we find this unacceptable, so while we're working on our compassion center bill, rather than leave people out in the cold, we've put together what we call a monthly cardholder meeting, where medical marijuana patients and caregivers who have already received license cards from the Department of Health are welcome to meet in a central location every month where we allow them to give each other medicine on the premise that since everyone in the room is already allowed to possess marijuana, this is the common sense, compassionate move to let people be able to share.
Yeah, that's something we've been doing here in Oregon for over a year now. Our law says that that patients can freely exchange so long as there's no consideration, no payment, no trading, no barter, or anything like that. So glad to see that this is spreading. This idea of getting patients helping patients and safe access to excess medicine is spreading from coast to coast. This is great to hear. Thank you, Jesse, so much for joining us here on the Daily Audio Stash. Jesse Stout's the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Patients Advocacy Coalition. You can check him out at ripatients.org. And, well, again, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Russ and NORML.
We turn now to Illinois, and we've got Dan Lynn from Illinois NORML joining us here on the Stash. Dan, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Russ. It's always good to be back here.
We just wanted to follow up. We had talked about the twin bills that you had in the Illinois legislature there, one in the House, one in the Senate, and we just wanted to follow up and find out what the movement on those bills were and how people in Illinois can help.
Sure. Well, there was a hearing last week down in Springfield, Illinois, for the Senate medical cannabis bill, Senate Bill 2865. And that Public Health Committee hearing went well. The bill made it out of there with a vote of 6-4. However, there was an amendment down to 8 plants, and there was testimony by law enforcement as well as another group against the bill.
Okay, so moving down from what to 8 plants then? What was the?
It went from 12 plants down to 8 plants.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in the state Senate, and there were some concerns among a few of the state senators on that Public Health Committee, and some of those details are still kind of being worked out. And that bill, although it was voted out of the committee, some of those amendments and details are still in the process of getting worked out, and there's another hearing for that Senate bill this Thursday, March 13th at 10:30 a.m. in that Public Health Committee as well.
Information should be available on the Illinois NORML website. That's the state Illinois, ILLINOIS, or IllinoisNormal.org, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so we got the Senate hearing coming up on Thursday in a couple of days here. And then how about the House side? What's happening on the House side?
Well, the House equivalent of that Senate bill, House Bill 5938, actually was just recently assigned to the Healthcare Availability and Access Committee, and that bill actually has a hearing today at 4 p.m. And the good news is that we have a few allies in that committee. State Rep Howard and Golar and Flowers are all 3 Democrats who have been very supportive of cannabis policy reform in the past, and we think that that bill will do well this afternoon. And that bill needs to be out of this committee by the end of the week. So we're glad to see that that's finally moving because it was kind of held up last week in the Rules Committee.
Now, if it didn't make it out of the committee this week, would that be the end of the House bill?
Yeah, it would have died, which wouldn't have been the end of the world because we still have the Senate bill. But because these bills are pretty much identical, we wanted to kind of get them both moving forward so that any concerns could be addressed with the most amount of time possible to take care of those.
All right, so we have the Thursday hearing for the Senate. We've got a hearing today in the House. We should be getting some more information by the end of this week, at least, to see how far we're going to go with medical marijuana in Illinois.
Sure, and there's also a House bill for cannabis citations that's going to have a hearing on Thursday as well in the House.
So Thursday you could go down to Springfield and be able to attend both hearings. Is that possible?
Yes. Anyone who is available to attend any of these hearings are highly encouraged to do so. And if not, people can call their state elected officials and tell them to support these bills. The phone number for the state directory operator who can connect people who are wishing to lobby their state officials is 217-782-2000, and just have the operator connect you to your state senator and state rep and tell them to support the following bills: House Bill 5938, House Bill 4715, and Senate Bill 2865.
Excellent. And I'm sure if people didn't have the time to write that down, you can check that out on Illinois NORML's website, IllinoisNormal.org. We'll have a link to it up on our Stash sidebar for Illinois NORML. You can just click right on our Stash blog, stash.normal.org. Dan, thank you so much for keeping us apprised of what's going on in the state of Illinois, and we hope that you'll be joining us as one of the medical marijuana states sometime soon.
Not a problem. Thank you very much, Rob.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Here at the NORML Daily Audio Stash, we work hard to change our nation's marijuana laws through education and discussion. But we also take the time to relax and unwind with an eclectic mix of pod-safe music from many independent artists. We look for music that speaks to the growing truth about cannabis, or music that speaks to broader themes of freedom, liberty, social justice, equality, and protest. To find out more about the artists and download the music you hear on this podcast, just log on to stash.normal.org. And if you'd like to get your music heard by the online cannabis community, just send us an email at stash@normal.org. Time for our Tuesday musical break, and we'll take a little vacation here. Follow us to a place in the sun with an artist named Sly Joe. Take a musical jaunt to sunny places like Southern California and New Mexico, and even skip a beat through Hawaii with this Just What We Need on a Tuesday melody. The musical hit today, High, fills us up like a fresh squeezed lemonade at a dusty summer festival. How could any song that features a ukulele and a kazoo not give you a lift? Even though Sly Joe, who lives in Neenah, Wisconsin, is probably scraping the ice off his windshield today, he's got us dreaming of enjoying some pakalolo with my peeps on McKenna Beach. Aloha! This is Sly Joe with his song, High.
Leaving castles in the sky far below our feet. Misty clouds will drift along, merrily we'll sing a song. Life is but a dream, easy to explain. Oh, aloha, no way. Choir singing sweet refrain, a sprinkling to a pouring rain, easy to explain. Let's go high, climbing up Mount Tamalpais, leaving castles in the sky far below our feet. Misty clouds will drift along, merrily we'll sing a song. Life is but a dream, but joy today brings. Up in Mount Gila hot springs, join the sparrows as they sing, and flying on an eagle's wing, what joy today brings. Let's go high, climbing up Mount Tamalpais, leaving castles in the sky far below our feet. Misty clouds will drift along, merrily we'll sing a song. Life is but a dream, today the greatest day to be alive.
It's time to play Pass the Stash, where you can win cool prizes from NORML. Don't forget that we're still running our contest, Pass the Stash, where you could win a copy of the new book, Parents' Guide to Marijuana, by Dr. Mitch Earlywine. If you've got a question for Dr. Earlywine, send it in to 420research@gmail.com. Any of your questions regarding parenting and marijuana, and the best 3 questions will be answered by Dr. Earlywine on the stash, and those 3 questioners will win a copy of the Parents' Guide to Marijuana. Send your questions to 420research@gmail.com, and you can play Pass the Stash. 12 states have enacted legal protection for sick and disabled Americans using medical marijuana to alleviate pain and suffering. NORML Daily Audio Stash takes a look at the medical marijuana stories in the 12 free states, as well as the plight of those using medical marijuana in the other 38 in our patient perspectives. One of the things we like to do here on the NORML Daily Audio Stash is talk to just the regular people that are in the cannabis community and learn from their wisdom as well. And so we're very happy to be speaking now with Susan, who is a registered medical marijuana patient out on the Oregon coast, which is one of the most beautiful places on earth, I do dare say myself. Susan, welcome to the Daily Audio Stash.
Thank you.
Well, you and I got a chance to meet through another one of our members, our board members with Oregon NORML, a wonderful, fantastic woman named Anna, and she was telling me that you're pretty recent, new to the program here in Oregon. When did you get involved with the medical marijuana program out here in Oregon?
I became a member just recently in November.
Oh, November of just this last year, then.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty recent. So, how does it feel now to have the protection of your state registration, knowing that you're now safe from prosecution within the state of Oregon?
You know, that has made such a difference. It's a whole different feeling to know that this is legal, and it's helping me so much that it's like two bonuses.
Well, it is like two bonuses. Now, if without getting too personal, can you tell our listeners what it is that you're using medical marijuana to help treat, and how effective has this been for you?
Sure. I was diagnosed with pretty advanced glaucoma about 2.5 years ago, and I, at that time, had already lost most of the vision in one eye, and I don't really have much peripheral vision in either eye. Mm-hmm. So I had 2 different surgeries on both eyes, and I've tried different drops that help me produce less fluid and help it drain better, are the 2 things that are a problem with glaucoma.
It's the pressure, is that right?
Right.
Okay.
The fluid builds up, then the pressure builds up. So I make too much, and mine doesn't drain very well.
Okay.
And so the surgeries and the drops have helped, but they just weren't enough to keep my pressure stabilized.
Now, were you experiencing any sort of side effects from any of these medicines that you were taking before?
No, actually, I got a bonus of cataract surgery, and so I have better vision, the vision that I do have.
Oh, good.
But I mean, they burn when you put them in. It's not pleasant, but no major side effects.
Now, how did you come to be using cannabis for your treatment, and did you find what were the effects of using cannabis?
Well, I was reading everything I could about glaucoma, and I was doing supplements and acupressure, acupuncture, and I kept coming across marijuana as something that could be helpful. And so I joined the program, and it's just been amazing. The NORML people have, every time we go there, something that we needed next in the whole learning process is just presented. And in fact, that's how I found out about the capsules, was that Madeline gave me a sample of them. And when I said I was a glaucoma patient, she gave me more. And I got to try them out for a few days, and it was instant. The difference in my pressure, I didn't feel it spiking up the way it does between my eye drops or whatever.
Wow, so we're talking about then the a capsule, a gel cap of cannabis, rather than smoking or vaporization or cooking it in a brownie or anything. Right,
and it's made out of stuff that if you did smoke, it'd give you a headache and you wouldn't get high, probably.
I see. Now, speaking of the high, has that been a problem with trying to use cannabis previously, and do the capsules help?
Yes. When I had to smoke, I had to smoke so often that it was uncomfortable. I didn't like doing that often, both for my lungs and just trying to maintain in the normal world.
Yeah. Now, as far as the normal world goes, you had told me before we got on the air here about how you'd previously been, you'd worked with arts and crafts, had been a teacher. How's life for you now that you're using the cannabis medicine? Has this helped to improve your quality of life?
Absolutely. It's just been phenomenal, both in how my eye feels and benefits of, is it analgesic?
Sure, yeah, the pain relief.
So I don't take any ibuprofen or anything for sore muscles anymore.
Oh, okay. So in addition to helping with the glaucoma,
I think and for me it really helps to ingest it into my, digestive system and really hit my whole body with it.
Well, we found in speaking to lots of different patients that everybody seems to have a particular method and particular strain that seems to work best for their condition. And one of the nice things about having a program like we have here in Oregon and some of the other states in the United States is that it's legal enough that people get the chance to experiment and to try the method that's going to work for them. You had mentioned our meeting that we have here in Oregon. We have a medical marijuana cardholders meeting twice a month where, with our state law, we have quite the blessing here in that patients and caregivers can give medicine to one another and give plants to one another so long as there's no sales or consideration. And so that's how you got involved then, I understand.
Right, and it's just been amazing, the generosity of people. I mean, it's expensive to have to buy the medicine, and now to learn ways to use stuff that people sometimes don't even keep,
Yeah, we're definitely very blessed out here in Oregon with our limits, our statewide limits here for patients is that they can have 24 plants and 24 ounces. So with our meeting, we've called it safe access to excess. With that much medicine, there's no reason that patients should have to go without. And we try to share as best we can. So what we have going on here politically, though, we've got a couple of states right now that are trying to get medical marijuana passed. In Michigan, they're going to have that as a citizen initiative on the ballot this November. And right now, the Illinois legislature is looking at two bills, one in the House, one in the Senate, for medical marijuana. So on the chance that we might be being heard right now by someone who's on the fence about medical marijuana, who's worried about it's going to lead to legalization or it's going to cause kids to get pot. I mean, what could you say to those voters who might be on the fence about medical marijuana?
Well, I can say that without it, I would have continued to be losing my vision. It's a miracle in my life, and the support that these people have provided for me is just phenomenal. There's so many people that need it, and it's so helpful to so many different kinds of things that, boy, it's just...
Well, Susan, I think your story speaks volumes. I mean, I think a lot of people just need to know that they don't have anything to fear, that the people that are using medical marijuana are just looking for a non-toxic, effective way to treat their symptoms, and you point that out quite eloquently, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you, Susan, because the more people speak up about this, the more we're going to be able to get the laws changed, and we can get it so that in all 50 states, people that have glaucoma, cancer, AIDS, multiple sclerosis, chronic pain, you name it, we'll be able to help treat them with something that's not a pharmaceutical, something they're not going to get addicted to, something that's not going to ruin their liver.
It's beneficial to so many parts of the body.
I agree, Susan. Well, we've been speaking with Susan here, registered medical marijuana patient on the Oregon coast. Susan, thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you for downloading the NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. We are produced by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. Our executive producer is Alan St. Pierre. Our deputy director is Paul Armentano. Our webmaster is Brian Judy. And web production is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. As always, you can catch up on the latest information about marijuana at www.norml.org. And you can interact and download from our Audio Stash blog at stash.norml.org. For everyone here at NORML, I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, hoping all your harvests are bountiful and your encounters with law enforcement are non-existent. We leave you with today's cannabis quote from P.J. O'Rourke, satirist and writer. Quote, "Marijuana is self-punishing. It makes you acutely sensitive, and in this world, what worse punishment could there be?" End quote. Well, it's something to think about, that's for sure. I tend to think that a world that embraced marijuana would be a much nicer world to live in myself. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for listening to the NORML Daily Audio Stash. Make sure to check out our Stash blog at stash.norml.org. We'll see you tomorrow, and take care of each other.